Good morning and welcome again to Ask Mason. This is the meeting that we have every 2 weeks that people can send in questions or just catch me on the sidewalk sometimes when you see me and give me a question. We'll try to address that. We always want to be very open and honest and transparent about everything that's going on in our community, and I think there are lots and lots of great things going on. If you do want to send a question, though, and you can send that to askmason@enid.org. I would encourage you to do that. I'll remind you that we'll not use your name, so we would never embarrass anybody by doing that. So I have with me again this morning Derrick Silas, which is our Director of Communications. Derrick, thank you for being here. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
You're sure welcome. I think we do actually have a couple questions this morning, don't we?
Yes. At the last commission meeting, I know you've been trying to do a lot of changes since you've come into the mayorship.
Yeah.
At the last commission meeting, we were discussing this about the best practices handbook for all of our boards and commissions.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your vision with that and what we're going to be doing with that.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. I think you're talking about the new ordinance. We studied it last week, and then it'll be on the agenda to hopefully pass on July the 18th. And it's ordinance number 2023. Couple things, and the commissioners brought up some great points on that. First of all, it doesn't change any authority. What has happened over time is that because we have these boards that are made up of just individuals that aren't used to being in the public eye, sitting on meetings, understanding that we have rules and regulations that the state of Oklahoma require us to follow so that it's fair to everyone, they've kind of some of them have gotten a little convoluted over time to where it's just everybody shows up. And I've been at several of them where people have voted, they wanted to take their votes back, and, just more like almost like a coffee drinking session instead of a true board meeting. And we just want to make sure that our boards are in compliance on everything, that someone inadvertently doesn't do something that gets themselves in trouble or the city in trouble. I think it's important to remember that in Oklahoma we have what's called open meeting laws, which just basically says we, the commission or any other board or commission out there in the city of Enid or anywhere in the state of Oklahoma, we cannot make decisions without the public being able to see that information, to study it ahead of time, and then to be available to inject their thoughts if they want to. We can't do that in secrecy. As far as the city commission, we can't even meet with we can't have more than 3 of us at any function where we could form a quorum. There are a few little idiosyncrasies on that, which I won't go into, but the purpose of that is that we have an agenda. The public knows what the agenda is. The agenda is filed ahead of time. In this ordinance, it says at least 4 days, not counting the weekends, so that it can be published or posted, and the general public can see what's going to be on that meeting. And more importantly, and you've heard me say before that during public comments, we can't reply back because those items aren't always on the agenda. There's a reason why we can't reply back. So we do have those open meeting laws. It's also important to know that it gives our staff time to look at what's going to go on that agenda. Aside from making it up, our staff's there to protect us and to protect all the citizens of Enid. We have legal counsel that is on staff 24/7. I use them all the time. Every time something comes up, I'll be calling one of them saying, hey, what do you think about this? To keep us in compliance. And they do the same thing on every agenda item that comes in. They're not looking to be the controllers of what goes on the agenda. They're there to make sure that it is correct, that it's worded correctly, and that it actually does not affect our charter that we have to follow. That makes sense? Yes. Also wanted to mention that it does not affect our civil service boards. Those are two boards that oversee our police department and our fire departments. Those are totally different type boards, so we omitted them through this process. They are their own entity. But I think it also resets the order of responsibility. These boards, all boards, with the exception of the two that I just mentioned, are advisory boards. They're to look at the situation at a much smaller, granular level and try to make a decision on that. If that problem cannot be solved, then it moves up to the city manager. The city manager is the next one in line over those boards. If the city manager cannot make that decision, then the city commission will. So these boards only advise. So kind of resets that. And just keep in mind, we want the public to always know what's going on. It's important. There's nothing going on behind the scenes. And so that's kind of what this ordinance is about, just to regroup. You know, over time, every organization kind of gets a little farther one way, a little farther the other way. All this does is just get us back so we're in compliance and we're following all the rules that we need to be following for the best of our community. So that's what that's about.
That's very good, very good. We have another question. Residents are wondering about the mowing in Enid. Some have suggested or asked, you know, we're not getting to all of our property, city property, to mow them. So tell us about what's going on with that.
Yeah, and that, of all the calls I get more on that one right now than probably anything that's happening. But mowing is an issue right now. A lot of people don't realize the city has over 3,000 miles of bar ditches and right-of-ways that we're responsible for mowing. And that's not counting all the areas possibly around some of our buildings, our maintenance facilities, just all those things that the general public doesn't even see sometimes. But we have had an unusual amount of rain. I was looking this morning, some pictures online where some of our roads flooded last night. And I'm such a heavy sleeper, I didn't even realize it rained until I got up. But in the last 24 hours, we've got 2.6 inches of rain, 2.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. I read the other day that since January 1, I think we're up to about 16 inches of rain. That's probably pushing what we get on a year. So, because of all this added rain, which in Oklahoma we never turn down the rain, I want to be careful here. I don't want to jinx anything. But we've had a lot of rain, which has caused our ditches and our right-of-ways to really grow up, be overgrown. Keep in mind that that is an area that we're usually shorthanded on anyway, not having enough staff. You know, years ago, I remember whenever I grew up down in Altus, two of my best buddies worked for the city every single summer mowing grass. That's all they did all summer long. It's hard to get help now to do those type of jobs. So we're always shorthanded. I was in Oklahoma City over the weekend, and it's interesting what you notice once you become either a commissioner or a mayor. You start looking at other communities. All their ditches and easement ways are all overgrown also. Every community is having the same issue. So we will get to those. We're not being derelict on that responsibility, but it's just going to take more time because of more rain. Also want to point out, sometimes people think that areas around their house are, if it's outside the fence, that it is the city's responsibility to mow that. When actually, if you look at the true property lines, their property goes much farther than what their fence does. And the city cannot mow private areas. I mean, we just can't do it. If we did it for you, we'd have to do it for me and the next person, the next person. So sometimes those areas, even though it's outside the fence, it's truly on the homeowner's property. So we have to go out and look at that, remind them that that's their responsibility, not ours. And that's just happened over time. People pull their fences in so they don't have so much yard to take care of. Well, that doesn't mean that they have less property. They just have less space inside their fence. And then I would also encourage people, part of the calls haven't just been mowing, it's been some of the drainage, where it washes leaves and sticks and limbs, all those type of things, and kind of covers over those grates that lets the water go down. We've also found that of those drainage areas that are getting clogged up, people are parking over the top of them. So when we go out to try to clear those, there's a vehicle over it. So, we could all kind of pitch in on this thing and probably make it a little better than what it is right now. Please don't park over those. Go out there if you're able. I know some people aren't, but go out there with your rake and just drag that stuff off, and then we will eventually get around to making sure those things are clear.
And don't mow in the street.
Yeah.
To the drain. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'd say about that. It's an issue. It's not going to be anything that won't get taken care of. It's just going to take more time this year, But the flip side of that is we're getting lots of rain and everything's green.
Yes,
so,
I appreciate the answers.
You bet.
Very good answers.
Is that all the questions we have
Those
this
are all
morning?
the questions today.
Okay, all right. Derrick, thank you. And thank you. We appreciate the questions. Please send those in. Be happy to address any of that. Go to the website. Like I said, we will not ever use your name. So happy to be here. Lots of good things going on in Enid. A lot of great things that will be coming pretty soon. So all that being said, thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.